Hi you guys, I'm glad you made it back. But if this is your first time here, I want to welcome you to my GMC Do-It-Yourself Repair channel. In my channel here, you'll see I have tons of videos that I'm sure that I have something in here that'll interest you. It doesn't take a lot of experience or knowledge and doesn't take a lot of tools. And one thing for sure, you're going to save tons of money. So before you go to a mechanic or the dealership, click on the upper right hand corner there and explore my channel. I'm sure I have something in there that's going to save you some money. But before we get started, please don't forget to like and subscribe. This really helps my channel. And by the way, hit that bell and leave a comment. And believe it or not, if you leave a comment, I respond back to you. Yeah, I know, I don't have a life, so I have nothing else better to do. Okay, let's get started. Well, this is part 2 of a 2-part series on how to remove your steering wheel accessory buttons. If you missed the first video, go ahead and click up on the upper right hand corner and it'll take you there. The reason why I did it in 2 parts is because the 2 upper ones are easy to do and to remove and replace. So I wanted you to do that first and get comfortable with that. In part 2, I'm going to show you how to remove the 2 lower ones. Now, if you haven't done this before, or maybe you did, you know that these are pretty hard to do. I tried to do the one on the right side and I was having a heck of a time. The reason being is you can get it unplugged, but trying to plug it back in, there is no slack in the plug, so you can align it to the button in the back. Then you have to snap it in. There is no slack enough for you to do that. Other videos are telling you that you need to remove your steering wheel. And even though I know I can do it, it's just that I really didn't want to remove my steering wheel. So I figured out a way on the second button here that I'm going to show you how to remove your button without having to remove your steering wheel. So here we go. Well, if you look at the picture on the left side, that's what my buttons look like. Looking at it for a while it didn't bug me, but when the lights went out, I knew I had to do something. I didn't realize that you could replace these buttons. And if you look on the right side, after I removed and replaced them, you can see how much better they look. Plus the lights work now. So I'm glad I replaced them. And it really wasn't that hard to do, and it didn't take a lot of tools. Okay, one of the first things I did was obviously get the buttons, so I looked on eBay and found there was a lot of them on there for different prices. I decided to get all 4 buttons, thinking that all 4 of them were easy to replace. The ones I bought were like the factory buttons, meaning that the light, when it came on, it was white. They have a few buttons out there that come in different colors, and there are some companies you can take your buttons out and send them to the company, and they'll put a LED color of your choice in there. So I got these ones because they were a good price and they were made in the USA and it was free delivery. After I ordered the parts came in about, I want to say about 7 days, 7 business days if I remember. So I got this box and I got 4 buttons, obviously. Wow, what a difference. Until now, I didn't realize how bad my switch was. I'm so embarrassed. Okay, let's take a look at the back side. Well, you can see what type of plug that's going in it. Okay, here's one of the small ones. As you know, these buttons is the left side and the right side, so make sure you have them faced the right way. Again, in this part 2 video, I'm going to show you how to replace the left side. And when you're done with that, you could do the same thing on the right side. Let me show you here right now how I'm going to remove this button. The first thing you're going to need is a pick that's bent approximately 90 degrees. This is the one that I'm using. I got this at Harbor Freight. They were about $3 or $4. There's 4 in a pack. What we're going to do is we're going to take the pick and we're going to slide it in between the bottom or top part of the switch, in between the switch and the steering wheel, right where the red arrow's at. Let me show you how we're going to do this. Okay, pretend we're sitting in front of the steering wheel and we're looking at the button. You can see the pick, the way it's positioned. It's positioned at approximately 9 o'clock. We're going to slide it in between the switch and the steering wheel, and we're going to slide it back. And we're going to turn the pick to 10 o'clock position. Here, let me show you what it's going to look like in the back when you do this. I know you're looking at the larger button right now, but you use the same technique on the small buttons. Okay, you got the pick at 9 o'clock position. You're going to slide it back Once you got it back, you want to clear the button in the back, and you're going to turn your pick at 10 o'clock position. Once you've got it hooked on in the back, you can start to pull it out, and the button should slide right out. Let me show you again so you get a better visual of what you're going to do. Hopefully this helps. The first thing we're going to do is pop the hood, and on the driver's side we're going to disconnect the negative post to the battery. That way we have no power to the airbag. Here I'm using a 5/16 speed wrench. You can find these at Harbor Freight. If you want, you can also disconnect your positive side. It's up to you. You want to let the car rest for about 15-20 minutes so there's no residual charge, so you won't accidentally shoot off your airbag. That would be ugly. Okay, after about 20 minutes, the first thing we're going to do is remove the airbag. What you're going to want to use is 2 small screwdrivers, or 2 small punches, or 2 small Allen wrenches. You're going to use these to unclip your airbag. If you look behind your steering wheel on the left side and on the right side, you'll see 2 small holes. On the left side, here it is. Make sure the tool you're using will fit right in that hole. Now let's look on the right side. Same thing. Here's the hole. Make sure the tool fits in and you're good to go. What you're going to do is, I'm going to start on the left side. Go ahead and push in. You're going to push in a clip inside there. You'll kind of feel it. Grab your airbag and kind of move it out slightly. You'll feel it unclip. The airbag will move out slightly. Once you have that side unclipped, go to the right side and do the same thing. Push it in, unclip it, remove the airbag. It's that simple. This is what it looks like when you're unclipping it. If you look at the red arrow, you can see the Allen wrench moving in and out. And the blue arrow, you can see where it clips into the airbag. It clips it in right here where this groove is on the airbag post. Okay, now it's time to unplug it. Now at this point, if you could do this with the airbag on, that's fine. Since this is the first time I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and remove the airbag and set it aside. Next, we're going to remove the left side button here, like I showed you earlier. Remember not to pull the button completely straight out because the plug in the back doesn't have a lot of slop. You don't want to pull the plug out. You don't want that to happen because then you have to rewire it. So just be careful. This one popped out. If it doesn't pop out like mine, this is where you want to press this button here where the red arrow's at to unclip it. I just used the pick and pushed down on that black button and gently moved the button outwards, and it came right out. There you go, just like that. Okay, now that we got the button out, we have some options here. Number one, to get that plug in, as you may notice, it's pretty much impossible to plug that thing back in. So one way of doing this is to remove your steering wheel completely and remove the cover on the back side and fish your wire so you get a little more slack. That's if they give you enough wire for you to get some more slack. The other way is to reroute your plug around this post here, and you may get some additional slack. If you look at the red line here, you can see what I mean. Instead of running it this way, like the blue line, you'd run it around this way, like the red line. But I could tell I didn't have enough slack. I really didn't want to take apart my steering wheel, so what I did was I decided to cut the rubber. Yes, you heard me correctly. I decided to cut the rubber. Please don't judge me. I figured if I cut the rubber and glue it back correctly, no one would notice. The reason being is if you look at the surface of the steering wheel, the surface is not flat and shiny. It's embossed, meaning that it has a rough surface. So if I do a clean cut and properly glue it nice and tight together, you probably won't see the seam unless I told you where it's at. You would probably be the only person that would notice that little seam if you do it right. So all I did was take a utility knife and cut it, just like I'm showing you here. Right where the red line is at is where I'm going to cut it. Remember, make a nice clean cut, so use a sharp blade. Okay, I've got it all cut. I'm totally committed now. You can see as I squeeze it, the seam disappears. So it's important when you glue it back together, you don't have any glue residue. And when you clamp it together, it's nice and tight. So let's go ahead and plug the button back in. Make sure it clips on the back really good. That way when you put it back together, the plug doesn't pop right out. Just open up your seam and slide the button in. It's pretty easy now. Remember to make sure you have the button pointed the right way. Once you have the patient in, it's time to sew the patient up. What I'm using is some 3M plastic trim adhesive. You can find this at any parts store or any body and paint store. Just go ahead and put it on really good. Wipe off any excess. That's really important. And what I did is I put a clamp on it and let it sit for about 30 minutes. As it set, I took a little bit of paint thinner and wiped it clean. Before you put the clamp on, you want to make sure that this seam is very clean and you don't have any adhesive residue sticking out. Make sure it's clean now before you clamp it. After you clamp it, again, wipe off any residue. When you put the clamp on, don't clamp it on too tight, just clamp it snug. You don't want the two pieces to move because you put too much pressure. What you don't want is to come back 30 minutes later and find out that it moved and it's dry. You're going to hate yourself. Once it's dry, remove the clamp, and now we can go ahead and put back the airbag. Just plug the two plugs in and snap it into place. Now that we got the airbag in, now you can go ahead and reconnect your battery. Once you got the battery connected, you're all done. See how easy that was? Well, this is what it looks like. I did this to both sides of the bottom buttons. As you can see, you can barely tell. I was going to touch it up with a touch-up marker that you can get at a parts store. but I wanted to show you without the touch-up marker, you can still barely tell. Once I use the touch-up marker, it's almost impossible for you to know that I did this. Well, I hope this video helped. I know these bottom buttons are really hard to do, and a lot of guys don't want to take off their steering wheel. Number one, they probably don't have the tools, or they just don't have the confidence to take off the steering wheel. This is another way you can install these buttons in without having to remove your steering wheel. Stay tuned to one of my next videos where I think I'm going to go ahead and remove this leather handle that goes around the steering wheel. That is stitched in there and it's done by hand, and they sell kits where you can replace the outer leather handle. So stay tuned for that. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it was very informative. Please check out my other how-to videos. Oh, and check out my new website. There's new items being put in there every day. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course, hit the bell. Until then, we'll see you at my next video. Bye.